A daughter raised in a strict home rebelled from her parents' tight grasp by starting a new life with a bad boy lover. With his encouragement, she came out of her shell and transformed herself into a blonde bombshell, relishing excitement and danger. A mind-bending journey that led to murder. In September 2002, in Little Rock, Arkansas, 49-year-old Mike McCool was a man oozing with confidence. His tough demeanor, snazzy sports car, and appearance of wealth had recently helped him win the young trophy wife of his dreams, 26-year-old Leslie Ballard. After an afternoon of high-speed frolics, the perennial playboy came home, only to find his life turned upside down.
He's in shock. Here's a woman he's been married to for just a few months. It's the love of his life, and she's lying there with her wrist slashed. He doesn't know if she's alive or dead at this point, so he picks her up and rushes her to the hospital.
The troubling question for friends and family was, why would Leslie want to kill herself?
I could not fathom what could have happened that she would want to take her own life.
3 years earlier, having just completed her master's degree, Leslie had moved back home where her parents, Janie and Lester Ballard, were waiting with a special gift, the keys to her own house.
Leslie has been spoiled rotten her entire life by Janie and Lester. She's led a sheltered life ever since she was a child, and nothing has changed now that she's back.
This is so exciting.
At first, Leslie was overwhelmed by her parents' generosity. But she soon realized it was just the latest attempt by her mother and father to control her. She'd been groomed all her life to follow their orders. Janie and Lester's own house was nearby, enabling Leslie's overprotective parents to keep an eye on her 24/7.
As Janie used to drive home from work, she would go past Leslie's house and check to see if Leslie's car was in the driveway. Les was trying to keep a hand on her. He wanted to know where she was and what she was doing and who she was doing it with.
Leslie needed a new job. Again, her parents were one step ahead, leading her way. She would join the family printing business.
Janie and Lester are thrilled about this. Now she can be with them almost every day. The family business can eventually be handed down from one generation to the next.
Across the street from their print shop was the local courthouse, where Mike McCool was a frequent visitor. Leslie had noticed him before, but this was the first time he'd wandered over for a chat.
Yeah, my parents have a printing company over there.
Mike.
Oh, okay.
Mike, cool. How are you?
Leslie, nice to meet you.
Michael made numerous trips to the district court to settle his speeding tickets.
She's attracted to him immediately, and he knows it.
I don't know.
I don't bite.
23 years her senior, Mike was married and was content to simply flirt for the time being. A short time later, they crossed paths again at a local gym. Mike, always a ladies' man, couldn't hold back. He seized the moment and met with little resistance. Leslie had no way of knowing Mike shared something in common with her parents. He also liked to dominate and control. In his case, the women who fell for his Mr. Nice Guy routine.
Sure do.
Keep it coming.
Okay.
What do you do at night? Anything for fun?
Me? I don't know. I mean, what do you like to do?
I like to go out and party, have drinks, run around the town.
Yeah?
Yeah, you feel like...
Naive and desperate for excitement, Leslie agreed to let him become her personal trainer, not realizing that this was his ploy to sculpt her body into the fit and toned physique he liked. Leslie, looking for a taste of real love, saw this as her chance to enjoy herself.
She never had a serious emotional relationship with anyone until she met Mike.
Mike quickly charmed her into bed, and Leslie was overwhelmed by the attention he lavished on her. She fell madly for her married lover. Leslie knew full well she couldn't breathe a word about their affair to her mother and father, as it would devastate them.
Their little girl having a fling with a married man, that was not the master plan for her.
It wasn't long before the lovebirds planned a romantic getaway to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, for a ski trip. Only most of the action didn't take place on the ski slopes, with Mike savouring every moment, especially as Leslie was paying all the bills. But their little secret was about to be revealed. Leslie had maxed out her corporate credit card. Leslie ignored her mother's desperate pleas to call the relationship off. Instead, she moved in with her newly separated muscle man. Leslie and her parents were now at war, and Mike McCool was loving every minute of it. He transformed his rebellious girlfriend into a bleached blonde bombshell. Leslie believed that with Mike, she could finally live the life she wanted to.
What attracted Leslie to Mike was this sense of feeling loved, feeling wanted, but there's also some real resentment on Leslie's part toward her parents. It's that sense of, look, everything you despise, that's what I'm doing right here, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Mike made her feel safe in doing that. He allowed her to rebel against her family.
Three months after the ski trip, Mike filed for divorce and things turned ugly. His wife painted a terrifying portrait of what life was really like with paranoid control freak Mike McCool.
Have you been seeing somebody else?
No.
There will be consequences if you do.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yes.
Mike McCool has this dark side. When he doesn't get his way, things can get ugly.
Leslie Ballard was at war with her controlling parents for moving in with equally controlling bad boy Mike McCool. His third divorce had turned ugly, as his soon-to-be ex outlined how he had terrorized her and their daughter. On one occasion, he'd fired a gun in the air, and a SWAT team had been deployed.
Come out the door and put the gun down, Mike. Put the gun down, Mike. Come on, Mike. Walk down the stairs. Down the stairs.
Mike McCool is pathologically narcissistic, which means he is just incredibly self-absorbed.
After a tense standoff, Mike McCool was arrested and charged with terroristic threatening. He received 5 years probation.
He was somebody who had the ability to become violent when threatened or crossed or challenged in any way.
Mike couldn't contain his inner demons for long, and soon he and Leslie were fighting like cats and dogs. Leslie's parents' worst fears were being realized.
Women to Mike McCool are objects. He controlled them. They were his. Period.
Yet there was something different with Leslie. The violent outbursts and passionate making up drew them closer together.
Leslie and Mike feed off the volatility in the relationship. The highs are absolutely exhilarating. And in contrast to that, the lows can be extraordinarily miserable.
Women are drawn to that bad boy.
The couple's violent interludes followed a familiar pattern.
If you are doing everything that you need to do to serve my needs, then I love you. When you're not serving my needs, then I hate you.
Like actors in a movie, they both escalated the drama. One day, Leslie ran off to St. Louis, but Mike knew she was just waiting for his call.
I'm sorry, baby. Don't cry. Don't cry.
And sure enough, it didn't take much to convince her. Within days, she'd returned for round 2.
I love you.
After yet another fight, Mike surprisingly sought a protection order against Leslie, claiming she had multiple personalities and was threatening to kill him.
Here's some irony for you. You have big, hunky Mike McCool seeking protection from little Leslie. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
His request was denied. The same month, Mike had a more pressing problem to deal with. Big bills he couldn't pay, forcing him to file for bankruptcy. The couple decided to bury the hatchet and make a new start. After 2 years together, the couple that liked to live dangerously decided to get married on top of a 20-story mountain tower in front of bemused tourists.
You may now kiss your bride.
Even though it was Mother's Day, Leslie's meddlesome mother and father had not been invited.
Someone mentions to Janie, "Oh, I hear your daughter got married." That's the first Janie's heard about it. She calls Leslie upset, crying.
Janie and Lester Ballard's blueprint for their daughter's happiness was torn to shreds.
I think her mother wanted her to marry a good Catholic boy, settle down, have kids, have a career.
Mike McCool, though, had other plans for his new bride.
All right, so what's going to happen is that when we trace all the way down to make sure that the breasts are even, and then...
He encouraged her to go under the knife for breast enhancement surgery.
You hear a lot of people talk about he tried to turn his wives into Barbie dolls because that's what he liked, that's what he was attracted to.
Within 3 months of saying, "I do," Leslie had morphed into Mike's dream girl.
Leslie is an object to Mike McCool. He gets a young woman that he can manipulate physically into almost this trophy that just says to everybody, look at what I am capable of achieving.
Beautiful. I think they're perfect.
Yeah?
Worth every penny.
Good.
She also got a tattoo of a black widow spider.
What does that represent? It represents that dangerousness, particularly with who she has now become.
Family and friends were horrified by her new look. To them, Leslie resembled nothing more than a hooker. But she was happy, reveling in her new notoriety.
You got it all.
Even trying her luck on amateur night at a local gentleman's club.
You are so sexy.
A final insult to her respectful parents. And a final confirmation for Mike McCool that there were no limits to his persuasive powers.
That's my girl.
Leslie's concerned parents persuaded a friend at the police department to check into Mike's background.
Their worst fears are realized. Mike McCool has a dark criminal past.
And again, his explosive temper was to blame. As an 18-year-old, he'd been out partying with 3 friends. They were cruising around Little Rock in Mike's father's car when one of them was sick. Mike grabbed his friend.
Man, you got all over the car.
I didn't mean to, man.
Come on.
The 14-year-old hit his head on the curb.
The following morning, the boy never wakes up. He's dead.
McCool was charged with second-degree murder. The judge was willing to dismiss the charge if he joined the Marines. Mike agreed, but once more his deeply flawed personality became his undoing. After 5 years, he was sent packing, classified as being undesirable. At the age of 23, he returned to Little Rock for a pampered life, with his wealthy parents buying him anything he wanted.
His father bankrolled every wild idea he ever had, whether it was racing motorcycles, racing speedboats, bodybuilding. He never wanted to take no for an answer.
Janie made another impassioned plea to her daughter Leslie to end her relationship with Mike. Once more, it fell on deaf ears.
The relationship between Leslie and Janie had deteriorated primarily because Janie hated Mike. She didn't believe Mike McCool was good for her daughter. She made that plain to Leslie.
Her fears grew when Leslie sold the house and bought a smaller apartment. Janie persuaded Leslie to sign over the ownership into her name.
Mike has been bleeding Leslie dry, so Janie hopes this move will help protect the assets that her daughter has left.
Janie double-crossed her. She changed the locks and planned to use the property as leverage to make Leslie do as she was told.
I don't want to paint Janie as a tyrant, because she's not. She's just a woman who has a very finite view of what she wants her daughter to be.
Leslie knew Mike would be enraged when he found out. Feeling trapped between a rock and a hard place, she decided to kill herself. In Little Rock, Arkansas, Mike McCool returned home to find his young bride bleeding and unconscious. They'd often fought and were both drama queens, but he never thought it would come to this.
I got you. We'll get you there. I got you.
There was a suicide note in which Leslie claimed that neither her domineering husband nor her controlling parents cared about her anymore.
I think some of it was attention-seeking, but I also feel that part of it was a cry for help. I think she had realized she had traded one controlling relationship for another controlling relationship that was far darker than the one she had left.
Mike saved his damsel in distress, and Leslie made a quick recovery. The hero of the hour had a favor to ask in return, encouraging Leslie to sue her parents. She filed a civil fraud suit, claiming her mother coerced her into signing over the apartment. Her father settled out of court with a check for $50,000. The strain of the family breakdown took its toll on Dad Lester. 5 months later, he was gravely ill and in a hospice.
It's blowing up. Everything's going to hell in a handbag, and can't anybody control it.
Leslie knows her father is near death, but she doesn't let a little thing like that stop her from a romantic getaway with Mike to Florida.
On August the 19th, 2003, Lester Ballard died at the age of 69. Ten days later, Leslie finally made contact.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Once again,
When did this happen?
Leslie taking absolutely no responsibility for her own behaviors, but it really tells you the lack of real emotional connection Leslie had with her parents.
10 days ago? Oh my God.
The couple went home, hoping to benefit. Once, she could have expected a large payout from her father's $2 million estate. But Leslie's relationship with Mike McCool cost her dearly.
There's something strange.
Lester changed his will to leave Leslie only $25,000.
Wait, you want me to?
They're having a lot of financial problems, and $25,000 isn't going to be enough to solve those problems.
Aren't you the grieving widow?
When Leslie discovered her newly flush mother had been on a spending spree, she lost it.
You stole my inheritance.
Janie Ballard didn't realize the clock was now ticking on her life, due to a clause in her husband's will.
If your mom dies in 30 days, you get all the money.
What do you mean? What?
It says it right here. It all goes to your mother, and you get nothing. You get $25,000, that's it.
There was just a week to go.
So what are you saying?
If you want the money, we have to kill your mother. You want the money?
Yeah, I want the money.
Are you in?
It resolved all of their problems. It resolved the money issue. It resolved this thorn in their side, particularly to Mike. It resolved all of Leslie's anger and jealousy over her mother. It resolved all of these lifelong issues that she could just never let go of and could never get over.
You feeling it?
Yeah.
You got it?
Mm-hmm.
Mike developed a covert plan for Janie Ballard's murder.
All right, let's see what you look like with the mask on.
Leslie would have to dress like a ninja and be covered from top to toe to minimize the risk of leaving behind DNA.
It is almost like a movie in their heads. You know, he drops her off in her black ninja costume. She's going to stealthily creep around the house and commit this horrible crime and be able to get away with it completely. It's not based in realistic thinking.
After the killing, Leslie would steal one of Janie's cars as a getaway vehicle. Mascara and a wig would help trick anyone who saw her into believing the killer was African American.
In their minds, this is foolproof. Mike keeps telling Leslie, If she sticks to the plan, they won't get caught.
Make sure that when you get in there,
The man who'd been thrown out of the Marines chose the blade Leslie was to use and gave her full instructions for the task ahead.
I see two people who are absolutely incapable of any sort of empathic emotions. To Leslie and Mike, there is no value in anyone but themselves.
With a mother's intuition, Janie Ballard feared something bad was about to happen.
Janie called me and she said, I'm scared. I said, Janie, what are you scared of? She said, I'm scared of McCool.
At 11:30 a.m. on September the 12th, 2003, Leslie and Mike arrived at her mother's house.
okay, we're clear. When you get back with the stuff, listen, do not get in the cab.
Okay, I got it.
If you get in there, you're gonna get blood and everything else. We can't have that.
I got it. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Be careful.
I love you.
I love you. You got this.
Okay.
30 minutes later, Janie Ballard arrived home from work.
You see an absolute commitment to going into that house and murdering her mother. No apprehension, no anxiety.
Leslie prized rings from her dead mother's fingers, treasured memories from her past.
The sight that she is seeing is having no effect on her whatsoever. I don't believe she ever felt a sense of remorse or guilt.
Leslie grabbed jewelry and other valuables and followed the plan, making the house appear as though it had been ransacked. As rehearsed, she drove her mother's car across town to the rendezvous location. An area populated by African Americans.
She's waiting for him, and she starts to panic because he's not there.
How many more stops you have on your route today?
Well, I got it.
Mike was out on his motorcycle, ensuring he'd got a good alibi.
At least you have a nice day for it.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't working though, you know?
I gotta...
In the end, he will do whatever it takes to protect himself, even if that means throwing Leslie completely under the bus for this crime.
Two hours later, the murder mastermind finally showed up, offering no apology.
Where have you been?
Who's in charge? Who's in charge here? Let's go.
God.
Let's go. Get the stuff. Get it out of here.
As planned, Leslie abandoned her mother's car. But the rookie assassin forgot to hide in the back of the truck, leaving incriminating blood on the seat.
You're gonna get blood all in the truck!
I'm not thinking.
He berates her the entire trip back to the house.
You got blood all in the truck now!
Back home, Leslie stripped out of her blood-drenched murderer's attire and washed away the last memories of her mother.
And get this stuff off of you. We're gonna have problems now. They're gonna be coming for us because you can't follow simple directions!
There's almost a symbolic nature to washing the blood off. Sort of a new life, the end of what she had known and the beginning of what's possible.
Her cunning husband made another discreet attempt at keeping his own hands clean.
Mike's always planning ahead. While Leslie's cleaning up, he takes a couple pieces of her bloody clothing and hides them in a tire in the backyard.
It was Mike's insurance policy. If everything turned bad, he could use them to put all the blame on his unsuspecting wife. Later that day, Mike and Leslie drove an hour to his parents' house in Hot Springs.
Everything is back to normal, visiting the in-laws like nothing ever happened.
The following morning, one of Janie Ballard's friends stopped by her home. He was a crime scene specialist, and since her husband's death, Janie had turned to him for a shoulder to cry on.
They would drink coffee, and she confided in him about her problems with Mike.
He'd been making sure she was okay, but Janie had suddenly stopped answering his calls.
From the minute he arrives, things just don't look right.
Janie's red Cadillac was missing, and the front door was unusually left open.
Got a homicide? Yes, there's somebody here now. She's lying on the living room floor. Okay, what's her name, sir? Her name is Janie Ballard.
A friend had discovered the body of Janie Ballard inside her home in Little Rock, Arkansas.
You could just tell by looking at the body it wasn't fresh. You know, we didn't find her right after it happened. Blood was dried and kind of coagulated.
Investigators saw signs that the house had been ransacked.
We can see drawers pulled out. We go into the bedrooms and some stuff scattered around there.
So you better call that in. I'll call in dispatch.
Janie's friend told police a valuable coin collection had been stolen. Despite the signs of robbery, detectives found no sign of a break-in, suggesting Janie's murderer was someone she knew.
Door keys are hanging in the door still. The alarm is not blinking like it's been set or activated.
58-year-old Janie Ballard's body was sent to the medical examiner.
Just days before the alleged murder.
The murder became headline news.
And they said Janie Ballard was killed yesterday. And I didn't know what to do.
Investigators put out an alert for her missing car. Janie's friend who found her body suggested two prime suspects to detectives.
Her own daughter and son-in-law, the people she should be closest to in the world, that's who she was afraid of.
Investigators immediately went looking for Leslie and Mike. But the killers knew they would be coming and planned to lie their way out of trouble.
We went to their house several times. They weren't there. We made phone calls, couldn't find them.
The autopsy report highlighted the savagery of the attack.
The number and type of wounds present on the body was startling.
There were more than 70 cut and slash marks.
I do believe for the first time in her life, she was in complete control. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was just engaging in a complete destructive rage.
Leslie and Mike finally arrived home after an overnight stay at his parents' place. Detectives were waiting for them, but the couple had prepared for this day.
Hey, Leslie. Excuse me, Leslie.
Yeah.
Walk you home.
Hi.
Mike and Leslie put on this big act.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but we get to inform you that your mom has died.
They were so ridiculously over the top, police smelled something rotten.
Who did it? Do we know anything about
The couple agreed to go to the station.
Can you drive her?
This one.
Okay. We appreciate that. Please follow us. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Listen to me. Don't you say a thing stupid.
Keep
it cool.
All right.
You stick to this plan, and I swear to God, if you say my name or one word about this, I will kill you.
Yes, Mike. Let's go.
And we split them up to do the interviews.
Leslie told them the stories police had heard about battles with her parents were a pack of lies.
What was your husband and your parents' relationship?
Fine. I mean,
She tells us, well, it was great. My parents loved Mike.
Detectives made clear they knew Leslie was lying, and under intense questioning, she finally cracked.
I'll tell you what really happened.
She sort of slumps in her chair and it says, okay, I'm going to tell you what happened, but it's bad.
She looked up and she took a breath and she said, I killed my mother.
I followed my mother into the house, and I pushed her down, and then I just started stabbing her. I think she knew it was me.
I knew it was personal.
Do you remember where you hit her with the phone?
I hit her in the back of the head.
Leslie Ballard told a disturbing tale. The once beloved daughter had crossed the ultimate line.
She commenced to tell the whole story about planning it. Their hopes were that somebody would come and steal the car, and then whoever stole it would get pulled over and get grilled, and the police would assume they did the murder.
Friends confirmed Leslie was a shadow of her former self.
Within a couple of months of them being together, everybody that knew them, family, friends, workers over at Shepherd's, could see Leslie starting to change. Attitude, appearance, everything about her was starting to change to a different person, and in their opinion, a worse person. Not the same sweet Leslie that they had known her entire life. I think she was just trying to be bad, tough, bad girl, and show Mike.
Investigators heard all about Mike and Leslie's turbulent relationship.
It was tumultuous at best, but on again, off again. I'm leaving you. Okay, I'm coming back. I hate you, I love you. I guess the best love-hate relationship I've seen as far as, that goes.
Leslie Ballard was placed under arrest. Her husband claimed he had no idea she was going to execute her mother.
No.
According to Mike, she says, I'm just going out there to talk. Now, if your wife says I'm going out to talk to my mother and she's dressed like a ninja, I don't know if Mike ever explained what he thought about her wardrobe choice that day.
I talked to you for a bit.
You never argued with her?
Never once. Never one time did we get in an argument. You have on your route today.
Well, I've got to...
Detectives realized his alibi was just too convenient.
He's the coward sitting up on the hill, letting his wife do the dirty work.
Mike blamed Leslie. Leslie blamed Mike.
These are two people that really have no loyalty to one another. It's about self-preservation. For each of them, it really was about themselves.
Both were placed under arrest. Alone in a holding room, for the first time in his life, Mike McCool felt trapped by others. He wouldn't let anyone in and planned to commit suicide.
Give me your hands, walk! Give me your hands! Let him stay. Oh, got it. Get out. Come on. Get him out.
McCool was taken to a local hospital for treatment, but was soon released back into police custody. As the questioning resumed, he admitted helping cover up Janie Ballard's murder, insisting his wife had acted alone without his knowledge.
What would you think? I was a little bit...
All self-serving. Typical. I blamed it on her.
He revealed to investigators where to find the bloody clothes he'd hid on the day of the murder. Inside their home, investigators found documents that showed how desperate they were for money. The couple faced a mountain of debt. With Leslie's help, detectives recovered her mother's car, stolen jewelry, and the knife used to kill her. Police now had the evidence they needed to charge them both with capital murder. Leslie was the first to go on trial.
And it's a high-profile case, as high-profile a murder trial as Little Rock has seen in 20 years or so.
The gory details of the cold, calculated killing are laid out. The excessive violence, the anger, the greed.
To think of that happening to Janie, it just broke my heart. Just literally broke my heart. Still does.
Janie Ballard's family asked prosecutors not to seek the death penalty.
They convinced us that Janie would never have wanted her daughter to be killed as a result of causing her own death. In general, her defense was, the devil made me do it. The devil being Mike McCool.
The frenzied nature of the attack told a different story of Leslie's rage. In May 2004, the jury found the once perfect daughter guilty of capital murder.
Life without parole. She will die in prison.
Then Mike McCool got his day in court. The handsome charmer took the stand in his own defense.
He stuck to his story that it was his wife's idea. He didn't know anything about it. He only found out about the murder after it occurred.
Leslie told the jury Mike had planned the whole thing.
It's always hard to prove that someone is a participant in a crime if they're not actually at the crime scene itself. There was no physical evidence that connected him to it. So her testimony was critical in proving that he participated in the crime. And then there were other sort of logical arguments that we made that would show that he obviously had to have been a part of it.
The jury found Mike McCool guilty of second-degree murder and theft of property. His sentence, 60 years behind bars.
I think that Mike McCool is a wrecking ball of a person who swings into people's lives and destroys everything there.
If you want the money, we have to kill your mother.
Mike is one of the most manipulative and just down, deep, evil people I think I've ever run across in 16 years of homicide.
In numerous letters, he continues to blame Leslie for the murder.
In every one of them, he would hint at, I have information that'll blow the lid off. It will give you everything you want to know about why Leslie did this. She's evil. She's the Black Widow.
One was the powder keg, one was the match. And separate and apart from each other, they're harmless. But you strike the match and you put it to the powder keg and you have this explosion.
I don't think that either Leslie or Mike ever experienced any real high levels of anxiety or remorse or guilt for what they did. Once they come together, you end up with a dark, hedonistic union where nobody means anything to them at all. It's about what I want and how we can use everybody else to get there, even if it means murder.
Are you in?
The combination of the two of them was absolutely deadly.